The voyage begins. It began not with a map, but with a dream. A dream so vast it could not be contained by the edges of the known world. In the late 15th century, when the earth still ended at the horizon and monsters were said to guard the oceans beyond, one man dared to imagine what lay hidden behind the curtain of the sea. His name was Christopher Columbus, a sailor from Genoa. A man whose eyes were fixed not on the waves before him but on the invisible lands he believed waited beyond. The world was smaller then, yet its mysteries were infinite. Kingdoms fought for gold, faith, and glory. And across Europe the winds of discovery began to stir. Spain, a nation newly united under Ferdinand and Isabella, looked to the horizon as if destiny itself was whispering through the salt air. Columbus walked through royal halls with maps drawn from myth, stars charted from memory, and conviction burning like fire in his chest. He spoke of a westward path to the Indies, of spices and silk that could be reached not by going east, but by sailing into the setting sun. Many called him a fool, others a fanatic. The scholars said his distances were wrong. The priests said his faith was misplaced. Yet in his heart, Columbus believed he was chosen for something greater than trade or treasure. He believed he was meant to change the world. The year was 1492. The night air over Palos was thick with the scent of tar and salt, the creaking of timbers and the soft murmur of sailors preparing for the unknown. 3 ships waited by the shore: the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, fragile wooden shells that would carry the hopes of empires into the mouth of eternity. Under the watchful eye of the stars, the ropes were untied, sails unfurled, and the wind caught like a breath from God himself. As the harbor lights faded behind them, a silence settled, not of fear, but of awe. Every man aboard knew they were leaving the world they knew behind. Days turned into weeks, and the ocean became endless. The horizon no longer promised land but swallowed their courage whole. The sea was alive. Waves like mountains, winds that screamed through the rigging, skies that burned with storms and stars. Columbus stood at the bow, eyes fixed on the west. His faith a compass no storm could shake. At times he spoke to the ocean as if it were a living thing, a gatekeeper to the unknown, demanding sacrifice, testing resolve. The men whispered of mutiny, of turning back. They feared they had sailed off the edge of the world. But Columbus spoke of destiny, of kingdoms and crowns that would rise from discovery. He told them the sea itself wanted to be crossed, that God's hand guided their path through the darkness. On calm nights the water shimmered with ghostly light, the glow of plankton, or perhaps, to them, a sign from heaven. The stars seemed to move with them, forming new constellations over the black expanse. Food ran low. Rations turned to rot. The compass began to falter, pointing not north but to mystery. Fear became hunger. Hunger became despair. The men looked at their captain not as a leader but as a madman chasing shadows. Yet Columbus never wavered. Each sunrise was proof that faith could outlast fear. On the 31st day, a bird appeared, a small one, flying west, then another. The ocean changed color. The waves softened. Pieces of driftwood floated past, carved by human hands. The air carried a scent. Green. Alive. Like earth after rain. Hope returned. Fragile and trembling. The night before discovery. The sea was calm as glass. Columbus stood alone on deck, his eyes scanning the horizon. He thought of home, of Spain, of the countless souls who doubted him. He thought of Marco Polo, of the prophets who spoke of lands beyond the setting sun. He whispered a prayer to the stars. that they might reveal the truth before his men's faith collapsed entirely. Then, in the distance, faint but real, a flicker, a light, it danced on the horizon, rising in, falling with the waves. A candle in the darkness. A sign that the world was larger than anyone had ever dared believe. He called out to his crew, his voice trembling between disbelief and triumph. The men rushed to the railings, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Land. The word spread like fire through the ships. Land. After 70 days on an endless ocean. The cry echoed across the waves like thunder from heaven. As dawn broke, the horizon revealed its secret. A line of green, radiant under the newborn sun. It was not the Indies. It was something far greater. It was a new world. Columbus fell to his knees. The wind carried the scent of forests untouched, of soil that had never known plow or empire. He wept not for riches but for revelation. Behind him, the men shouted and prayed. Some fell silent in awe. They had crossed into history. They had turned myth into map. The Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria sailed forward, their sails glowing like wings in the golden light. The world had changed, though none of them yet understood how deeply. For beyond that shore, beyond the sand and palm trees that shimmered like paradise, waited the dawn of a new age. One that would reshape continents, civilizations, and the fate of mankind itself. The New World. The morning was painted in gold and silence. The sea, once a restless monster, now breathed softly against the shore as if bowing to the moment of revelation. The crew gathered along the decks, their eyes wide, their souls trembling before the sight of land that shimmered in the distance. Palms rose like green flames against the sky, and birds the color of jewels drifted through the light, unafraid of the strangers approaching from beyond the horizon. Columbus stood at the prow of the Santa Maria, his face carved with exhaustion and wonder. For 70 days he had lived between hope and madness. And now the unknown stood before him, tangible, alive. As the boats were lowered into the surf, every oar stroke seemed to echo through time. The water, clear as glass, revealed fish of impossible colors gliding beneath them. The sand beneath their feet was warm, untouched, sacred. Columbus knelt, pressing his hands into the earth as though to feel the pulse of a new creation. He lifted his gaze toward the sky and whispered a prayer. In that moment, the dream of a single man became the turning point of human history. The flag of Castile and Aragon was raised, fluttering in the wind that carried the scent of flowers unknown to Europe. He named the island San Salvador, believing he had reached the edge of Asia, unaware that this was not the Indies, but an entire world hidden in plain sight. Around them, from the shadows of the trees, shapes began to emerge. Men and women, their skin bronze beneath the sun, their eyes bright with curiosity. They carried no weapons, only gifts, fruit, woven leaves, feathers of every color. They had never seen men like these. Pale-skinned strangers clad in metal, their faces hidden beneath cloth and armor, their ships towering like mountains of wood. To the islanders, Columbus and his crew were beings from the sea. Perhaps spirits, perhaps gods. To Columbus, they were proof that paradise existed. He wrote of their kindness, of their beauty, of their innocence. He imagined converts to the faith, allies to the crown, souls to be guided toward salvation. Yet beneath the wonder, a shadow stirred, the ancient hunger of empire. The men explored, stepping deeper into the lush forests where every leaf seemed to whisper secrets of creation. They found rivers like mirrors, flocks of birds that darkened the sky, and gold, glinting faintly in the sand. A shimmer that would ignite centuries of conquest. Columbus gathered the islanders before him, showing them trinkets, beads, and bells. In return, they offered parrots, fruit, and friendship. He saw their open hands and thought of opportunity. They saw his cross and thought of peace. Neither could know what their meeting would bring. The sun burned high as Columbus wrote in his journal, his words heavy with triumph and faith. He believed he had found the outer islands of Asia, gateways to the treasures of Cathay and Cipangu. He dreamed of returning to Spain not as a sailor, but as a messenger of destiny. Yet even in his awe, doubt flickered. The stars above this land were not the stars of the known world. The constellations had shifted. Time itself seemed to slow, as if the heavens were watching the birth of something vast and irreversible. The days that followed were filled with exploration. Each island revealed new wonders. Turquoise waters, forests alive with sound, creatures that defied reason. The people welcomed them with songs and dances, their laughter echoing through the palms. But hunger for discovery soon turned into hunger for dominion. Columbus's men, once humbled by the immensity of the ocean, began to see the islands not as gifts but as possessions. They searched for gold, demanded tribute, took captives to guide them inland. The paradise they had found began to tremble under the weight of ambition. Still, Columbus believed himself chosen. He saw the signs of God in every sunrise, the promise of empire in every shoreline. He imagined ties rising from these sands, cathedrals where once there were forests. He wrote letters to Ferdinand and Isabella filled with visions of wealth, conversion, and glory. The ocean that had once tested his faith had now crowned him with revelation. When he finally turned his ships toward home, the sea was calmer, as if blessing his return. He carried with him the proof of his discovery. Plants and birds never seen in Europe, gold ornaments, and a handful of native people, symbols of a world reborn. As the sails filled with wind, Columbus looked back at the fading line of land, the cradle of a new dawn. He did not know that the echo of his voyage would ripple through centuries, shaping empires and erasing worlds. The ocean behind him seemed endless again, but now he knew it was not a barrier. It was a bridge. When he reached Spain, bells rang across the cities. Crowds gathered to see the man who had found the passage to the Indies. Kings and queens welcomed him as a hero, a prophet of a new age. His name spread across Europe like fire. Cristobal Colon, the admiral of the ocean sea. Maps were redrawn, dreams reignited. The age of discovery had begun. Yet in the shadows of celebration, the truth waited. The lands he had found were not the edges of Asia, but a continent unimagined by any king or scholar. The New World, vast, rich, alive, would soon draw the ships of every empire, bringing both wonder and ruin. Columbus would sail again, not once but 3 more times, chasing the promise of a western passage. Each voyage brought him deeper into the unknown. Through storms and fever, through hope and heartbreak, he saw lands of endless green, mountains that touched the clouds, rivers wider than imagination. But he also saw the cost of discovery, the greed of men, the chains of conquest, the silence that follows when paradise is claimed. In his final years, Columbus lived between glory and regret. The world had changed, yet he felt forgotten by it. He wrote of visions, of voices from God, of destiny misunderstood. He died believing he had reached the Indies, never knowing he had revealed a new world to humankind. And yet, across oceans and time, His name endures, not as the beginning or the end, but as the moment the horizon broke open and humanity stepped beyond its fears. The waves that carried him still whisper his story. The sound of sails against the wind. The echo of a heartbeat that refused to accept the edge of the world. History remembers the triumph. But the sea remembers the truth. That every discovery is born from doubt. Every empire from a single dream. The New World, once untouched, became the mirror in which humanity saw both its greatness and its guilt. Forests turned to cities. Songs to silence. Faith to conquest, and yet, from that first footprint in the sand, something unstoppable began. The realization that the world was not what we had been told. That there was always more beyond the horizon. Columbus's voyage was not merely the crossing of an ocean. It was the crossing of imagination itself. It taught mankind that the unknown was not to be feared, but pursued. Centuries later, his ships have long turned to dust, but their shadows still move beneath the waves. Every time a vessel leaves the harbor, every time a dreamer looks west and wonders what lies beyond, the spirit of that voyage sails again. The discovery of America was not the end of mystery. It was the beginning of it. And somewhere, in the endless rhythm of the sea, the wind still carries a whisper from that dawn in 1492. A whisper that says, "The world is vast, and it belongs to those who dare to see beyond the edge."